The sky above Thalzer's ruined outpost burned with the colors of a dying star, a twilight soaked in ash and memory. The air reeked of ionized metal and scorched blood, yet the scent was nothing compared to the silence. A silence too loud for General Kael'vari, daughter of the Cold Womb, commander of the Wraith Dominion's southern fleets, and the last one left alive in this cratered place where once stood a gleaming station of galactic pride. She limped through the rubble, the servos in her armor hissing with every faltering step, clutching her side where blood seeped in viscous, alien pulses. Around her lay the dead her warriors, bred for perfection, precision, and obedience. Dead, from a strike no one had expected, by a species no one took seriously. Humans, primitive, chaotic, unrefined. A fluke victory, the Dominion said, a statistical anomaly. But she had seen it herself now. Not just their weapons, but the look in their eyes when they fought. It wasn't rage. It wasn't hunger for conquest, it was something else. Something she didn't yet understand, and that terrified her more than their bullets. Kael'vari's long limbs moved heavily as the remains of the command chamber loomed in front of her, half collapsed and speared through with jagged pylons. The once gleaming dome, lined with banners of the Dominion, now hung in tatters, and she stared at the torn cloth like it had meaning beyond fabric and color. In her ears, the command uplink hissed with static, interrupted only by fragmented cries for help that would never come. All around her, the planet was silent, save for distant booms of collapsing structures and the crackle of fires that burned without witness. She sank to one knee beneath the shattered console, dragging herself into what remained of the operations bay. Her breath came in ragged growls. The data core was gone. Extracted. They had come and taken it, those impossible humans. But they hadn't killed her. Why not? She expected them to finish her off. That was what soldiers did. She had given no quarter. Her campaigns across the Cherik Nebula had left entire colonies in ruin. She had bombarded orphan moons and sterilized biospheres. She did not hate. She calculated. And yet now, wounded and abandoned, she could feel the pulse of a thing she thought she'd never encounter. Helplessness. The Dominion would call her compromised if they ever found her. That much was clear, and they would not come for her. Not after this failure. She was expendable. Useful only when victorious. The air pressure shifted with the sound of bootsteps. Not Dominion, not brave. She froze, eyes narrowed, senses on alert despite the blood loss. The rhythm was wrong, organic, uneven, like someone not bred for marching. Human. She could smell the tang of their sweat and the faint synthetic odor of their oxygen recyclers. The enemy was near. She summoned the last energy her armor could feed into a pulse blade, its flickering hum the only weapon she had left. And then she saw him. He was not what she expected. No gleaming exosuit, no powered gauntlets or plasma rifles. He was tall for a human, but slender, dressed in torn combat gear and hauling a small, flickering beacon that sputtered between emergency signal bursts. He froze when he saw her, hands in the air, not in surrender, but as if trying to say, I mean no harm. His helmet was cracked open, revealing a face slick with blood and soot, a pale eye swollen shut. The other, sharp and bright, locked on hers with a mix of fear and something more curiosity, maybe. Or pity, Kael'vari growled, raised her blade weakly, and barked a phrase in her tongue that meant approach and die. He didn't understand the words, but the meaning was clear. Still, he didn't back away. You're hurt, he said softly, his voice dry and slow, as if it took effort. I don't want to fight you. I'm not even sure why I'm alive. But ... I think you need help. Her mind reeled. No one in the Dominion would say such a thing to a broken enemy. Help? What trick was this? But she saw his hand slowly reaching into a pouch, not for a weapon, but for a canister, water. He tossed it gently to her, and it bounced once at her feet. Instinct told her to slash it away. But thirst overpowered instinct, and she took it. Just a sip, just enough to keep from blacking out. He sat down across the room, not close, not far. Just present. And the silence returned, but this time, it was no longer the silence of death. Kael'vari watched him, her pulse flickering like the dying lights overhead. She didn't understand what was happening. A human had spared her, offered her water, sat with her in the ruins of war. It defied everything she'd learned, everything she'd done, everything she thought the universe ran on. And somewhere in her war-torn heart, a question opened up like a wound. What kind of creature does that? Asterisk, he watched her from across the broken chamber, unmoving, as if any sudden motion might shatter the fragile thread holding this moment together. His name was Daniel Kessler, though names hardly mattered out here on the edge of known space. where entire species fought wars in the dark and no one remembered the dead long enough to bury them. He had lost his squad 2 days ago, ambushed by a Dominion vanguard while scouting the wreckage of an old relay station. Somehow he lived. Somehow he crawled from the flames, alone, half-blind, bleeding. The fact that he was still breathing felt more like a clerical error in the universes than any victory. And now he was here, in the same collapsed room as one of the enemy's most feared leaders, an alien general known to his people as the Iron Widow. He'd read files about her, watched shaky footage of her conquests, seen what she'd done to the moons of Taraquan and the oceans of Miravi. His people had called her a monster. Now he was watching her drink water from his canister with trembling hands. And the word didn't fit anymore. She was unlike any creature he'd ever seen. Tall, regal, even while slumped and bleeding, her skin a deep, bruised violet laced with glowing veins that pulsed with what he assumed was pain. Her armor, though scorched and battered, still bore the insignia of her rank, an elegant fang-like emblem etched in silver. The blade in her hand remained lit, though its glow dimmed each time her breathing faltered. He could feel her eyes on him, those strange, multi-layered irises like shattered glass catching too much light. They studied him not like a threat, but like a question she had never been trained to ask. Daniel cleared his throat and winced at the pain in his ribs. "I should be trying to kill you," he said aloud, half to her, half to the still burning ceiling above. "And you should have gutted me by now." His voice was hoarse, thick with dust and despair, but we're both still here. I don't know what that means yet. He reached into his kit and pulled out a small med patch, its adhesive edge covered in dirt but still functional. He held it up in the air, slowly, deliberately. This isn't a weapon, just medicine for the pain. He wasn't sure if she understood his words, but she understood the gesture. Her blade twitched, hesitating. That in itself was more than he expected. He slid the med patch across the floor. It stopped a few feet from her boot, and for a long time she didn't move. Then, without a word, she leaned forward and picked it up, watching her examine the tiny strip of synthetic gauze like it was some alien artifact of unspeakable power. Made Daniel's chest ache in a way he couldn't explain. Maybe it was because she looked so lost, so unsure of what to do with kindness. Like it was something she'd never seen before. She didn't apply the patch, not yet. Just held it in her clawed hand, as if waiting for the trick, the trap, the explosion. He didn't blame her. If the roles were reversed, he wasn't sure he'd trust himself either. "I had a brother," he said suddenly, voice low. "He died on Mars during the first wave of Dominion bombings. Your ships came out of nowhere. Crushed our whole fleet in less than an hour. He was a civilian technician, just trying to keep the power grid up for evac." He swallowed, feeling the sharp burn behind his eyes. "I hated your kind for that, all of you. I enlisted the next day." The alien general looked at him, her gaze no longer hostile but unreadable. She made a sound low, guttural, rhythmic. Not a threat. Something more like ... acknowledgement. "I don't know why I'm talking," Daniel said, trying to laugh but failing. "Maybe it's the concussion, maybe I'm just tired. But I can't stop thinking. Maybe we're both just cogs in a machine that never cared what we wanted. And maybe that machine's finally broken." She shifted then, slowly lowering her weapon until it hissed and folded back into her gauntlet. It didn't feel like surrender. It felt like curiosity had finally outweighed fear. The blade had been her wall, and now it was gone. Daniel reached for his ration bar, broke it in half, and tossed the piece toward her. It landed beside the med patch. This time, she didn't hesitate. She picked it up, sniffed it like an animal. Unsure of a new fruit, then bit down. Her expression didn't change, but he saw her swallow. They sat like that across the room, surrounded by ruins and ghosts. Two enemies who had run out of reasons to fight. Daniel leaned back against the broken console, his body aching but his heart a little lighter. He didn't know what tomorrow would bring. He didn't know if she'd still be there when he woke up, or if a Dominion strike team would finish them. Both off. But for now, in the stillness, in the heat and wreckage, and impossible quiet, a seed had been planted. Something fragile. Something dangerous. A beginning. Time moved strangely in the ruins, where the sun never truly rose, only shifted its dying red hue across the shattered sky, like blood smearing across a canvas. Hours blurred together in silence, punctuated only by the distant groan of metal falling, and the breath of two survivors who should have been enemies, but had become something else, unwilling companions, maybe? Or echoes of a deeper truth neither fully understood. General Kael'vari no longer watched Daniel with a predator's stillness. There was something softer now in her movements, less about threat, more about watching. observing not just for weakness, but for meaning. She studied how he limped, favoring one side with every step, yet refusing to slow. She noted the way he hummed low human tunes beneath his breath when he thought she wasn't listening, fragments of melody that sounded like mourning and memory woven together. He never spoke of his pain unless it overwhelmed him, but she could see it in the way he clenched his jaw, the way he exhaled before standing like he was preparing for battle. These were not traits bred into him, they were chosen, endured. There was power in that, not the kind she had been taught to respect, but something deeper, something terrifyingly strong. He caught her watching him one evening, if evening could be called anything in the eternal twilight. He smiled, not mockingly, but tiredly, like a man who'd finally stopped pretending not to bleed. "You ever see a sunrise on Earth?" he asked. She didn't reply, so he answered himself. "It's different every time. The colors, the clouds, the warmth, nothing like this place. It's not special, really. But the thing is, we wake up early for it anyway, even when we've seen it 1,000 times. Just to remind ourselves there's still beauty left." She tilted her head, a gesture, not of confusion, but intrigue. Beauty. What a soft, useless word. And yet, something about the way he said it stirred a memory she hadn't visited and cycles a dream she once had as a hatchling. Before military conditioning scraped such things from her mind. A dream of a crystal lake, of stillness, of something. "That wasn't conquest. I don't know why I trust you," Daniel admitted, leaning against a pillar that looked like it might fall with one wrong breath. "Maybe because you could have killed me 12 times by now. Maybe because you didn't. Maybe that's enough." Kael'vari didn't answer with words. Her kind didn't waste them on feelings. Instead, she extended her hand slowly, her claws retracted, the gesture stiff, unnatural. A warrior's hand, offered not for a handshake. That was a human thing, but open, bare, vulnerable. Daniel stared at it, his brow furrowing with disbelief. Then he stepped forward and placed his calloused palm against hers. Their skin was nothing. Alike, hers was cool, almost metallic, with biosynthetic armor interlaced in dermal layers. His was warm, bruised, textured by cuts and life lived without precision. But in that moment, the contact felt like something sacred. Not romantic, not friendly, but honest, shared. They sat together after that, not quite side by side, but no longer apart. She taught him a few words in her language, mostly survival. Terms, names for plants and terrain he'd never see. He repeated them back awkwardly, earning a low, guttural chuckle from her. He asked her what her name meant. "Kael'vari," she said. "In your tongue, it is born of iron storms, a name given to a weapon." She paused, then added more quietly, "but not chosen." He looked away, the weight of that hitting harder than he expected. "I didn't choose my war either," he said. "I just couldn't stand doing nothing. Watching people die." He traced a crack in the floor with his boot, frowning. "Do you ever wonder if they're watching us now? Our commanders? Our gods? Our ghosts? Wondering why we're sitting here instead of trying to finish the job?" She exhaled a sound he couldn't quite label, a blend of agreement and regret. "Let them watch," she said. "Perhaps they'll learn something." And so the silence between them shifted. It was no longer full of suspicion or fear. It was the silence of wounds beginning to scar. The silence of two beings who had known only orders and violence, and now found themselves in the strange gravity of peace, if only temporary. They still didn't trust the universe. But maybe, just maybe, they were learning to trust each other. Outside, the wind picked up, scattering ash into slow spirals. A sensor on Daniel's broken beacon flickered weakly. Kael'vari noticed it first, rising to her feet in one graceful motion. He followed her gaze, realizing what she already had. Something was coming, something alive. And suddenly, their bond wasn't just a curiosity, it was a lifeline. And it was about to be tested. Asterisk, it came with the low hum of engines slicing through. The dead sky, a pulsing rhythm that shook the dust from broken beams and sent tremors through the wrecked foundations beneath their feet. The sound was familiar to both of them, yet carried different meanings. For Kael'vari, it was the voice of home of worships and command halls, and sharp orders that cut like blades. For Daniel, it was the echo of death, the scream of dropships, falling from orbit, bearing the weight of decisions made in cold rooms far above ground. He and Kael'vari both stood slowly, no words between them. There was no time for that now. The beacon had worked. It had called someone, but who? Kael'vari's eyes glinted, the firelight catching the narrowing slits of her pupils. "That's not a Dominion ship," she said finally, her voice low, strained. "The signature is wrong. Smaller, older model." She moved with more energy. Then she'd shown in days, dragging herself toward the ledge of the fractured dome and looking skyward through the dust-choked clouds. It's human, Daniel's breath caught. Then we're saved. But even as he said it, the words felt wrong, heavy. She turned to him, and there was something in her face he had never seen before, not defiance, not pride, but something close to fear. No, she said, you're not. The drop craft broke. Through the mist like a falling blade, its hull scorched and patched from years of service. This was not a rescue ship. It bore no medical insignia, no banners of peace or peacekeeping. Painted crudely on its flank were the faded initials of a Black Ops unit. Daniel hadn't heard mentioned in years. Had his squad, extermination protocol, ghost division. It meant only one thing. No survivors, no questions. Daniel's stomach turned. They think I'm dead? They're not here for me. He looked at her, the truth burning through him now, raw and cold. They're here for you. Kael'vari stepped back, her form tall and silent, staring up at the ship that hovered now just beyond the crumbling walls. Spotlights ignited, searing. Through the haze, casting lone shadows. A voice blared through speakers, cold, detached, stripped of identity. Unregistered alien signature detected. Target marked for eradication under treaty. Resolution 39G, do not resist. Daniel's fists clenched. They don't know. They don't care you're not a threat. They just see numbers. Threat levels. Statistics. He moved to stand in front of her instinctively, but she touched his shoulder and gently moved past him. I understand now, she murmured. This is the answer to the question I've been circling since the moment you offered. Me water. Why would an enemy show mercy? She turned to face him fully. Because you are not your leaders. You are not your protocols. You are something else entirely. A wild, broken, beautiful thing that does not make sense. Daniel stepped closer, the heat from the ship's thrusters beating against his skin. Then we'll make them understand. We'll explain. They're not here to listen, Kael'vari said. Her armor was barely functional, one arm hanging limp, the other trembling with effort as she activated what was left of her shield matrix. They are here to bury the evidence. The ship opened its side doors. Armed figures in black armor began their descent on cables, faceless and armed. 10 of them, maybe more. Too many. Daniel's heart thundered. He turned, searching the debris for his rifle. He found it, buried under steel plates and glass. The power cell flickered red, nearly empty. Still he lifted it. I won't let them take you. Not like this. Not after everything. Kael'vari gave him the smallest of nods, almost ceremonial. You are the strangest creature I have ever met, she said. And I have slain beasts that lived in suns. I get that a lot, he replied, and for a second, they shared something close to a smile, but the truth hovered heavier than the ship above them. This wasn't a fight they could win. Not with weapons, not with strength. The truth was that survival meant more than resistance. It meant sacrifice. It meant understanding when to run and when to stand for something more than survival. One of the soldiers hit the ground, weapon raised. Move away from the target, came the order. This doesn't concern you, human. Daniel stepped forward, placing himself between the soldier and Kael'vari. It does now. Last warning, the voice said. Kael'vari's breath caught. She could have pushed him aside. Could have left. Could have used the distraction to escape, but she didn't. Instead, she placed her hand on Daniel's shoulder. There is another way, she whispered, but it will cost us. He looked at her. What? She met his eyes. The truth. Let them see it. Through me. Through you. Through what we are right now. He didn't understand what she meant until. She stepped into the light, slowly, carefully, arms raised, blood staining her armor like war paint. The soldiers paused. Confused. Then the lead one turned to Daniel again. Why are you protecting it? Daniel stood taller. Because she saved me, because she had every reason to kill me and didn't. Because maybe for the first time in this war, we're not enemies. We're proof that it can end, that something else is possible. His voice echoed through the cracked walls, a voice untrained, unpolished, but true. And for a moment, no one fired. No one moved, and the truth hung there in the air, burning. Brighter than any beam of light, asterisk. The silence that followed was suffocating. It pressed down like gravity, heavy and uncertain, filled with too many eyes trying to decide whether to shoot or listen. Kael'vari stood tall, even as her legs trembled beneath her body burning from the inside out. Her blood loss was worsening. She knew it. Daniel knew it. The black armored soldiers descending around them either didn't notice or didn't care. One by one, they took formation in a half circle, weapons aimed, motionless but ready. From the drop craft, a final figure emerged, taller than the rest, with a cape that fluttered behind him and a visor polished to a mirrored shine. He carried himself like a man used to giving orders that killed entire cities. Commander Roth. Daniel recognized him instantly, the ghost of too many failed peace talks and classified dossiers. Roth was not a diplomat. He was a cleaner, sent in when the message had to be silence. His voice came cold and hard, like steel dragged across stone. Sergeant Kessler, you are in direct violation of engagement protocol and Article 7 of species containment. Step away from the alien and report to the ship. Daniel didn't move. She has a name. Roth's helmet tilted slightly. Then let her die with it. That's more than she gave the thousands she slaughtered. She saved me, Daniel said, his voice rising now. She could have ended me when I was unconscious, when she still had the upper hand. She chose not to. And in return, I didn't kill her when I had the chance. Maybe that's what makes us dangerous to you. Not our weapons, not our biology. Our choice. Roth didn't flinch. And your choice has consequences. He raised his hand. Kael'vari grabbed Daniel's arm with sudden, desperate strength. There is one way out, she said, her voice low, ragged. My species, we're biolinked to command tech. It's not just armor, it's memory, thought, soul. If I transfer it to you, it will overwrite you, partially. You'll carry both our minds. It's forbidden, painful, permanent. Daniel stared at her, horror blooming behind his eyes. You mean like an upload? More than that, she whispered. It's not sharing. It's becoming. I don't know what you'll be afterward. Neither of us will. But they won't be able to kill you, not without killing both of us. And that's something even Roth may hesitate to do. More boots hit the ground. The squad was tightening in. Daniel's mind raced. There had to be another way. Something less irreversible. Something less terrifying. But as he looked around, at the soldiers, at the ship, at Roth's poised finger ready to drop and turn this into a massacre, he knew the truth. They weren't walking out of this, not together. Unless something changed. I'd be you? He asked. No, Kael'vari said. You'd be us. And if even one of them sees what we are now, they'll have to question everything. The moment stretched like a blade. Roth's hand dropped, and Daniel made his choice. Do it, he whispered. Kael'vari closed her eyes. Her palm opened, revealing a glowing node embedded in her flesh, pulsing with unstable bioenergy. She pressed it against his chest. There was no ceremony, no ritual, just pain. A flood of sensation roared through him, raw and violent. His scream tore through the ruins as her memories poured into his skull, decades of battle, names of fallen lovers, the shrieks of planets burning, the cold logic of a life made for war. He saw her childhood in the dark towers of Wraith Prime, where emotions were sedated and failure meant erasure. He saw her rise through the ranks by outliving them all, and buried deep beneath all of it, a single memory of a late real or not. He couldn't tell, but it was quiet, still beautiful. It was where she went to survive herself, and then he felt her feel him, the lost brother, the grief he never voiced, the stubborn guilt that had driven him to the front lines. His love of music, his dreams of stars that didn't burn with fire, but with hope. His stupid, relentless need to believe there was more than the cycle. When his body fell to the ground, Kael'vari caught him. The soldiers stepped back in confusion as Roth's visor tilted. What the hell? Daniel rose, slowly, unsteadily. His eyes were no longer fully human. They shimmered with the layered depth of hers. His voice, when it came, echoed with both of them. I am not your weapon, he said. And neither is she. He stepped forward, arms open, exposed, but undeniable. You want to bury the enemy? Fine, but what happens when the enemy is you? When the enemy chose peace? Roth hesitated, and for the first time, Daniel saw it, the briefest flicker of doubt in the man's stance. Behind him, the soldiers didn't fire. Not yet, and in that breathless, hanging moment, the choice spread like wildfire through the ruins, through the ash and blood and silence. The line between friend and foe had just been erased. Asterisk. The silence that followed Daniel's transformation was a silence too wide for words, too sharp for gunfire. It was a silence filled with breath held across the galaxy, like the universe itself had stopped to witness a thing it never expected to see. Roth stood frozen, his mirrored visor reflecting. The strange, impossible figure before him, a man no longer just human, no longer just alien, but something new. Something no side had prepared for. Daniel's body shook from the strain. His voice, his and hers, still rang with power, but his muscles twitched from the flood of unfamiliar nerve signals. Kael'vari's memories lived inside him now, tethered, like burning constellations across the soft fabric of his thoughts. He could feel her grief, her battles, the weight of every order she'd given that ended with screams. And yet she wasn't dead. She hovered somewhere behind his eyes, her presence steady, fierce, afraid. "You're compromised," Roth growled at last. The edge in his voice was colder now, not surprised, offended. "This is a perversion, a contamination of command code. You've made yourself into a virus?" Daniel took a step forward. "No," he said. "We've become the cure." That was when Roth gave the signal. The squad opened fire. Not at Daniel. Not at Kael'vari. At the outpost foundation. The shock tore through the floor like a living thing. Explosions detonated under their feet, preset charges Daniel hadn't noticed hidden beneath the rubble from the moment Roth arrived. The soldiers didn't want a firefight. They wanted a collapse. A burial. No witnesses. No survivors. Just scorched stone where something impossible had happened. Daniel dove toward Kael'vari's body as the floor split, catching her limp form. With one arm and vaulting into the only intact corridor left, the structure groaning overhead as the roof caved behind them. Fire bloomed. Metal screamed. The world fractured around them. He ran. Or maybe she ran. It was impossible to tell. Their thoughts had merged into a single will, and that will demanded survival, not just for their sake, but for what they had become. A message, a question, a defiance. They burst into a side chamber and sealed the hatch behind them, the manual lever screaming as it locked. Smoke filtered through the cracks. Kael'vari's body slumped, barely breathing, lay across Daniel's lap. He pressed his forehead to hers. "We're not dying here," he said. She stirred, her lips twitching. Her voice, her real voice, was only a whisper now. "They'll never let us live." "Then we don't ask to live," Daniel growled. "We take it." From her gauntlet, he pulled a shard of Dominion core crystal, the last fragment of her armor's deep systems. It was sharp, glowing, reactively unstable. In the wrong hands, it could wipe out a cruiser, but in the right hands. He jammed it into the uplink port of his rifle and felt the surge of bioelectric light roar through the frame. The weapon didn't recognize it, neither did the human tech, but he did. The hybrid memory spoke the language of both machines. He bypassed the safety, rerouted the charge, reconfigured its purpose. The door behind him trembled. "Come on," he whispered to it. "Open it. I dare you." And it did. Wrath soldiers poured in, weapons up, heads low. But they weren't ready for what stepped out of the smoke. Daniel. Kessler, wrapped in alien tech and human rage, rose like a storm made flesh. The rifle glowed with unstable blue light, and behind his eyes burned Kael'vari's warfire. He didn't aim to kill. He aimed to show them. The weapon discharged with a scream that split the room. Not a bullet, not a beam. A pulse, a burst of memory. Each soldier hit by the wave staggered back, their minds momentarily flooded with images: Kael'vari's grief, her honor, her restraint. Daniel's losses, his brother, the child he never got to meet back home. Hope, anger, love, pain. It struck like lightning. Not to destroy, but to connect. One soldier dropped his gun. Gasping, another ripped off her helmet, tears in her eyes. A third whispered, "What the hell did they do to him?" And then Roth stepped in, untouched, unshaken, fury radiating from his body like heat from a forge. "Enough," he hissed. "You want to play God, Sergeant? Fine, then I'll bury you like one." He raised his sidearm. A plasma pistol set to vaporize at close range. No more speeches. No more mercy. Daniel stood still, rifle depleted. No defense left. And Kael'vari's voice echoed in him like a whisper in the wind. "Let him see you. All of you." Daniel dropped the rifle, took off his helmet, and stepped forward. No shield. No armor. Just a face half alien, half human, soaked in sweat and blood and defiance. Roth fired, but one of his own soldiers shoved his arm at the last second. The bolt missed. The silence after that was different, because something had shifted, something deep. The shot sizzled past Daniel's ear and melted into the wall behind him, leaving behind a smoking crater and the stench of ozone, but no blood. The soldier who had knocked Roth's hand aside stood there shaking, helmet off, eyes wide with disbelief, as if she couldn't quite understand what she'd just done. Daniel didn't move. He couldn't, not because of fear, but because something inside him, something he now shared with Kael'vari, understood that if he moved too fast, too violently, the spell would break. And this fragile miracle, the pause, the hesitation, the blinking confusion in the soldier's eyes, would disappear under the boot of command. Roth stared at the soldier who defied him. "What do you think you're doing, Lieutenant?" The young woman swallowed hard, her voice trembling but clear. "He's not lying, sir. I saw it. When that pulse hit me, I saw what they've been through. What we did, what she tried to stop." She looked to Daniel. She didn't kill him when she had the chance. She waited. She helped. You were compromised, Roth snarled. No, another voice spoke, a deeper one from the back of the unit. A man removed his helmet and stepped forward. We were blind, until just now. One by one, soldiers began lowering their weapons. Not all, but enough. Enough to make Roth suddenly seem very alone in that smoky ruin, surrounded not by his obedient tools, but by people humans, each of them now holding something they didn't know they could. Doubt. Kael'vari stirred faintly in Daniel's arms, her breathing shallow, but steady. She's fading, Daniel said quietly, his voice raw, broken open by all they'd endured. I don't know if she survived this bond. I don't know if I will. But if we do and you kill us, you'll be erasing the only proof that peace is even possible. Roth didn't answer. His silence wasn't confusion, it was calculation. The kind that made Daniel's blood run cold. Roth wasn't a fool. He wouldn't shoot now. Not with so many eyes on him, not with so many weapons half-lowered in hesitation. But he didn't have to win today. He just had to survive long enough to twist the truth into a new report, a new lie, a new justification for a war that fed men like him. Daniel saw it all in his stance. The way Roth slowly holstered his weapon, back straight, voice flat. I'll file the incident as a mental breach, trauma-induced delusion. The alien's body was never recovered, neither was yours. The outpost collapsed, no survivors. Daniel blinked. You're letting us go? No, Roth said. I'm racing you. But I won't be the one to pull the trigger. Then he turned and walked away, the dropcraft's engines flaring to life again as the rest of his squad watched him go in a stunned, guilty silence. Some followed. Others stayed behind, eyes lingering on Daniel and Kael'vari like they didn't know whether to salute or pray. And Daniel stood there, exhausted, holding the dying woman who had once sworn to exterminate his species, now fused to him in mind and memory, and something that wasn't war anymore. As the ship rose and disappeared into the hazy sky, he sank to his knees beside her. I think we won, he whispered, tears finally breaking loose down his soot-streaked cheeks. Her voice was a breath. Then why does it feel like a loss? Daniel laughed through the tears. Because no one will know. No statues, no songs. Just silence. Good, she murmured. Silence ... is peace. And then she fell still, not dead. Not entirely gone, but asleep inside him, her thoughts dimmed. Her fire banked into coals. He lay there for hours, unmoving, until the sun dipped and the world cooled into shadow. Then the surviving soldiers, those who had chosen not to follow Roth, came and helped him carry her out of the ruins. No orders. No ranks. Just people who'd seen something real and couldn't go back. They buried the others with their own hands, human and Dominion alike. No flags, just names scratched into metal. Small, defiant testaments to what war always tried to erase. Later, they found a working comms relay on the outskirts. Daniel sent a message, not to Earth Command. Not to the Dominion, but to anyone listening. This is Daniel Kessler, and I'm not alone. I carry the memory of an enemy who saved me. I am part of her now, and she is part of me. We are not symbols. We are not weapons. We are what happens when hate is broken by something braver. If you hear this, remember. Peace doesn't arrive like thunder. It arrives like this. A whisper. A pause. A choice. He ended the transmission. And for a long time, there was nothing but static. Then a reply crackled through. A voice he didn't recognize. We're listening. And that was enough. The war wasn't over. But something had started. Something that couldn't be stopped.